Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel, and here's an article called Why XRP Could Fail or Not Be Used in Cross-Border Payments in the Long Run. This is written by Jared Miller, who is an XRP holder. And having run through this and had a little bit of back and forth with this individual on the Twitters, I do get the genuine sense that this is not him trying to be a troll. I like to make the distinction between people that are intellectually curious and trolls. I do not smell sadness mixed with room temperature cottage cheese. I don't smell that anywhere. I do believe this individual, because that's what Bitcoin maxi trolls smell like, sadness and room temperature cottage cheese. I don't smell that at all. And so this is an individual that had an idea on his mind that's been disturbing him. Like, what if for this reason XRP's no longer needed? And I am a huge fan of throwing everything that you can intellectually at the concept of XRP making sense. I want every terrible potential outcome thrown at it. I want to personally intellectually test it, engage in critical thinking to determine if there's actually a hole in this whole process here, that we perhaps have not seen to this point. And interestingly enough, there was a somewhat new take here on a way in which XRP could no longer be necessary as a bridge for cross-border payments. And ultimately, it comes down to the idea of smart contracts being built into central bank digital currencies, making it not necessary to have Nostro Vostro accounts the world over, and thus not XRP. Now, I will tell you at the outset, and I will make very clear why, that's my intent anyway, throughout the course of this video, to make clear that it does not stand intellectual scrutiny, I will say. That is probably the best way to phrase it. It's not something to be concerned about. I'll just state it flatly right there. I could not be more convinced of this. And I'll explain why. But before we go any further, if you would please delicately tap the like button, I would definitely appreciate the support. And also, if you are a fan of thoughtful discourse and critical thinking, go ahead and subscribe to the Moon Lambo channel, because the types of questions that this individual, Jared Miller, is posing, I think that this needs to be encouraged. People out there that are XRP holders need, if they have concerns, they need to be able to engage in thoughtful conversation without people getting trolly back and forth. And thankfully, that is what happened here, so it is a true delight. And there's a tweet here to kick it off with the right mood here. This came from Lover of Most Crypto on the Twitters, wrote, "Do you ever think, maybe I'm wrong?" And then he wrote, XRP. King Solomon responded and wrote, "All the time. That's why I try to keep digging. If I'm wrong and am paying attention, I can hopefully realign accordingly." And then I responded after that on the Twitters and wrote, "Same. I'm always looking for real problems with the long-term viability of XRP. I'll flee any investment on the planet if I believe it no longer makes sense. I'm not here for ideological reasons." And that's still true. And so I just want to keep throwing everything at the concept of XRP utility. Throw any idea you can at it as hard as you can to try and break the mold, because if that ever happens, let's talk about it. But to this point, I've been doing that for 3 years, and I can't find anything that I think is going to make this not viable long term. But still, it's fun to think through this. So, and I had a bunch of Twitter threads open, and I'm going to go through the article first. Depending on if I feel like this video is going on too long, I determine whether or not I break into some of the Twitter back and forths that we had. And there's a second reason that I'm kind of hesitant to do it, and it's just because of the way that Twitter is structured. Because the way things splinter off, it's really difficult to track conversations. And so what most people do that have a good bit of experience on the Twitters is they'll have a thread and they keep responding to their previous posts, like, because you only have so many characters in a tweet, so then you respond to your tweet, and then if you have more to say, you respond to your tweet, and then you respond to that tweet if there's more to add on. And if the person that you're conversing with then continues the conversation from there, you're good. Unfortunately, Jared didn't do that, this is not some harsh critique against him. I'm just saying, this happens on Twitter all the damn time. But instead, he had an individual response for each of my tweets, and so it broke the chain, unfortunately. But again, not some sort of bad, it's just Twitter, man. It's impossible to read stuff in a coherent manner. So I got a bunch of tabs open just in case, but let's just run through this. And again, it's titled, Why XRP Could Fail or Not Be Used in Cross-Border Payments in the Long Run. I find it somewhat difficult to write this article as I am a big believer and bull of XRP and Ripple. I truly believe XRP is the greatest digital asset. I have spent 3 years following, researching, and understanding almost everything there is to Ripple and XRP, and constantly staying up to date with the news and Ripple community on a daily basis. Over these 3 years, I've honestly found Ripple and XRP to be virtually flawless. I believe that seeking flaws in a project is key to remaining unbiased to your investment, or in other words, to keep those rose-tinted glasses from slipping over your eyes. Completely on board with him here. Absolutely. And that's why, like, when I started the videos, sometimes I joke and I like join, subscribe to the Moon Lambo channel to join the echo chamber. Well, I am just joking, obviously, right? We should always be diligent in the way that we're approaching this and understand that we could certainly be missing things. And if it ever gets to the point where if anybody brings up a critique and you just think that they're trolly, and they're, I mean, unless they really are me, if your go-to response is emotional, stop it, if that's it, you might have gone too far then. And so I'm not there. I'm never going to be there. Right? I monitor myself. I don't want to be there. Because if something's wrong, I want to know it so that I can, adjust my investment accordingly. Anyway, he writes as follows. As perfect as Ripple and XRP are, there has always been one aspect or factor that has bothered me for some time about the ecosystem that Ripple and XRP are tackling and the potential development of this ecosystem. And it's time for me to get it off my chest and hopefully get some feedback and engagement and discussion with this article I felt compelled me to write. And indeed, after he wrote this, he tagged me along with some others in the community, which I'm appreciative of because it was actually fun to think through this from a logical perspective. I always enjoy these little thought exercises. And then it's the subheading here. Firstly, a quick understanding of what Ripple and XRP's primary use case. XRP's primary objective is to bridge the gap of cross-border payments between fiat currencies to enable low-cost and fast transaction speed coupled with real-time settlement. This is especially beneficial with pairings with low remittances values, as well as exotic pairings such as USD/MXN, for example. Well, I wouldn't really call that an exotic corridor, USD. Like, some of them get really exotic where you have to have like a ton of hops through the legacy financial system, and it gets to some really, lesser traveled paths with, fiat currencies that some people probably haven't even heard of in some cases anyway. But anyway, it's exotic pairs carry lower liquidity and high volatility compared to those of major pairs such as EUR/USD, for example. XRP is particularly useful here as an XRP transaction has a very short exposure to the markets. It's a matter of seconds. XRP essentially provides liquidity for fiat currencies to go in and out. So this leads me to my one primary concern with the growth and utility of XRP in this sector. And it comes down to central bank digital currencies. And here's what he wrote. Below I have quoted 2 definitions of central bank digital currencies. And here they are. Central bank digital currency is the digital form of fiat money. The present concept of central bank digital currencies was directly inspired by Bitcoin, but central bank digital currency is different from virtual currency and cryptocurrency, which are not issued by the state and lack the legal tender status declared by the government. And that comes from Wikipedia. Always be careful citing Wikipedia, though. Okay, anybody can go in and edit that stuff, but that sounds, I guess, close enough for the sake of this conversation, right? And here's another one. This comes from Investopedia. A central bank digital currency uses a blockchain-based token to represent the digital form of a fiat currency of a particular nation or region. A CBDC, which again is short for central bank digital currency, is centralized. It is issued and regulated by the competent monetary authority of the country. Maybe remove the word competent, and I'd say that's a pretty reasonable definition. It's the government. They're all running their currencies into the ground. Come on here. They're printing. Anyway, and then he writes, as CBDCs are digital assets or currency that exist on a blockchain, this opens the door to interoperability. As many of you may know, the United States is currently lagging behind a bit with incorporating this technology, which China in the lead with already issuing and testing their digital yuan in several cities. Well, yeah, so it's not issued. If they're doing testing somewhere, that's fine, but I think saying it's issued is too far. They have not. But then he writes, however, I see the U.S. taking the lead as they are actively developing the technology. Well, maybe, I don't know. They're way behind at this point, but it's possible. And so he writes, here lies the problem for XRP. Let's take, for example, the 8 most traded currencies in the world in no specific order. And then he lists them. They're on your screen. I'm not going to read them. Let us now suggest that in 10 years in the future, and these currencies have all been digitized as central bank digital currencies, are cryptocurrencies that logically reside on a blockchain. Then he writes, now this is where XRP could possibly become redundant. If all these currencies exist on a blockchain, this means that they have the potential to be interoperable, as already stated. Well, they don't, though. You still would need a bridge. They definitely do not just magically interoperate, which is the case with every single crypto right now. They're on their own blockchains, right? Even when people talk about moving Bitcoin on the XRP ledger, they're not literally doing it. You're just moving a representation of it on the XRP ledger. And so, no, there's almost no interoperability within the space today. And even if you're talking about there being the X number of central bank digital currencies in the future, that does not solve this problem. And then he writes the following. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking by now. No way central bank digital currencies are still walled garden scenarios. So he's aware of this. He's aware of the walled garden situation, but he still has concerns. So after that, I thought, okay, this could get interesting. And then he wrote the following. Walled gardens suggest that something is a closed system. Yes, the current fiat system is essentially a closed walled garden, which is defined by the Nostro and Vostro accounts that each and every other country must hold pre-funded accounts in order to supply that liquidity in that country when needed. This is where the use case for XRP comes in. XRP can potentially free up all the Nostro and Vostro accounts in the world. This dormant capital is estimated to amount to roughly $10 trillion worldwide. So indeed, XRP, if you have a sufficient blend of price and liquidity, yes, it's on tap in certain pools of liquidity today and can be used, but still markets obviously are very illiquid, which is why you only have so many quarters open, right? Anyway, he continues. Instead of pre-funding these accounts around the world with cash, one could go through XRP as it is the liquidity provider and has a value. Ripple calls their product on-demand liquidity, which is ODL for short, a fitting name. I won't go into the details of the dynamics and mechanics of how this process works, as this article will get too long and I want to get to the point, which is smart contracts. And here we are. Smart contracts could eliminate walled gardens and enable interoperability. Oh, that's not how this works, and I'm going to break it down. Don't worry. But give them credit. It's unique. I like people trying to think through potential holes in like the theory of like what the whole business model of what Ripple's doing in positioning XRP as a bridge currency. So to me, it was fun to mentally tackle this. But no, smart contracts will not do this, and I will explain why. So he writes the following: I believe that it is possible. He wrote, I believe that is possible that smart... It's just a broken sentence. There we go. There's been a few of these throughout. If it sounds like I'm saying stuff weird, I'm just reading it as he wrote it. I believe that is possible that smart contracts could be developed between the central bank digital currencies of each country. Now wait, you might be saying again, this doesn't eliminate walled gardens as the issued central bank digital currencies are sovereign to their own country. This is true, but also not. So let's pause right there. You're talking about the concept of building in smart contract capabilities on the blockchain of central bank digital currencies. Now, if a central bank, a federal, the government that backs it, wants to enable smart contract capabilities, they can do that. There's been no word to this point. Now, just about a week or so ago, the first ever central bank digital currency from the Bahamas was issued. And it's like most people missed the news. It was right around the time that PayPal made their big announcement. And so the Bahamas launched their central bank digital currency, first in the world. Does not offer smart contract capability, so already they couldn't interact. Already it wouldn't work. Right there, that's just one central bank digital currency. And even if you did have smart contract capabilities with two different central bank digital currencies, even if they both had smart contract capabilities, I mean, they understand that they still are, this changes nothing. They still are, first of all, different blockchains, and they are different fiat currencies. Because understand that a central bank digital currency, it is a fiat currency. And fiat currencies today, like the United States dollar, it's already digitized. When we talk about a central bank digital currency, this is where it gets in the weeds, but it's important to understand, like, it's just a different form of that monetization, or of that digitization, rather. So it's going to go from being digitized to being digitized in a different way. Right? And so there are perks that can come along with that. Like if you're the government in terms of ease of moving money around, dispersing funds. You can see what happened with the pandemic, getting funds to people. It was a nightmare. The government didn't have the infrastructure to just plant money in people's accounts, and so they had to go through the banking system. It would be easier perhaps to report taxes. There are all sorts of benefits, but you're just talking about the way in which it moves. It doesn't change the monetary policy. It doesn't change the issues of trust, and it doesn't mean that even if they somehow had smart contract capabilities built in, which none of them are talking about to my knowledge anyway, so that'd be like an if anyway, even if they did, it doesn't do anything to bridge the gap in trust. But still, let's keep going through this. So it writes the following. The best way is to look at or get an understanding of what I'm saying is to look at the Bancor algorithm. I have attached the following articles as they provide a more in-depth understanding of this economic model. And he provides a couple links there. Then he writes, you might ask then, rightfully so, where does the liquidity come from since, for example, XRP is out of the picture? Well, I got to take a sip of water. This is a lot. Okay. Moon Lambo good. Moon Lambo proceed. All right, it's simple. Just in the same way as how a fiat exchange uses liquidity from XRP to go from one fiat currency to another, you can think of places such as exchanges as like liquid Nostro Vostro accounts, but they are segregated digitally wherever exchanges may reside in the world. Yeah, true enough. And so that's the whole point with XRP, where it's sufficiently liquid, has a sufficient blend of price and liquidity, really. They can allow for X amount of transactions with X amount of value, right? Whatever it happens to be. Then he writes, think of Forex trading, but of central bank digital currencies on smart contracts, where liquidity is generated by the traders of the respective currency pairs. Hashtag traders generate liquidity. Okay, so as far as the liquidity, it's got to come from somewhere. It doesn't matter if it's a central bank digital currency or just monetized or digital currency the way it exists in a digital form today. It doesn't matter. It's got to be somewhere. Even if it's just on a digital ledger, it has to exist on that digital ledger. And so it has to be, so somebody has to hold that digital representation, whether it's digitized the way it is today or whether it's digitized in the form of a central bank digital currency, has to be held somewhere, right? And so you're still not getting around that problem here. It still has to be held somewhere. And then somebody writes, this means that each country would not have the issue of having pre-funded accounts, as the mere smart contract trading of the central bank digital currencies create liquidity organically via an underlying smart contract. This relies on a predetermined formula to determine the exchange price between digital assets. The more traders, the more liquidity. And then he writes, this would be my understanding. And so, there's a little bit more, I'm going to read through it, but he did nothing to break through the mechanics of how this would work, how it would be implemented, or anything along those lines. And I even asked him like a ton of questions on Twitter, and he just chose not to answer any. I guess he just glossed over them. Sometimes he'd throw questions back at me, but he didn't have answers for any of that. But as far as what he stated here, it's actually, let me read this part again. This means that each country would not have the issue of having pre-funded accounts, as the mere smart contract trading of these central bank digital currencies create liquidity organically via an underlying smart contract. That's false. Okay, because when you're talking about liquidity, you're not talking about just the money existing, whatever it is, whatever money you're talking about. It has to be held somewhere by somebody, and it has to be on exchange readily available for sale. Because if it exists, but it's not in a pool of liquidity like a cryptocurrency exchange, it doesn't matter. It's no longer useful because it's not liquid at that point. Just like if you've got a $5 bill on your couch somewhere, I mean, it's not going to help move money around the planet, right? Even if it's United States dollar, and even if we were talking about the United States dollar central bank digital currency, it doesn't matter. If there's a $5 on your couch, it doesn't matter. It's got to be readily available for trade on a platform of some kind. In this case, what we're talking about here is cryptocurrency exchanges. That's what he's talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Cryptocurrency exchanges here. And so it does nothing to change the need for that to be recognized. And sure, it needs to be recognized digitally, but it does today. There is no difference. In fact, when you're talking about Nostro Vostro accounts, I don't know if you guys have thought about this, but you guys do realize, like, it's when banks are creating these relationships, the Nostro Vostro accounts, like a new one, first of all, it takes typically historically 8 to 12 months to develop the relationship and what that's going to look like and the trust and all of that. But once they sign on the dotted line, they're not actually sending each other stuff. They're basically agreeing to a contract that says X amount of my stuff is over there and vice versa. But nothing's actually moving there, right? And so if you're talking about utilizing central bank digital currencies and something with a smart contract, which again, he didn't even flesh out the idea of how this would magically work here. He didn't. And it still makes no sense to me. I've tried to think through how that could work, and it does not make sense. Because because understand, like a smart contract, it's just a legal agreement. And so it's like, this is the problem with a lot of smart contracts conceptually, is it's like garbage in, garbage out. If you input garbage, you're going to get garbage output. And that really is a serious thing. It's like, it's not doing anything to solve the actual issue of trust here. And even if it did, you still have to hold on a ledger somewhere the central bank digital currency in question, and then you'd have to it doesn't. I'm sorry, I'm like fumbling and bumbling, but I know what's going through my head, but like sometimes getting the words out, it's like, but it doesn't do anything to remove the issue of the fact that it has to be readily available to move. So it's the same fundamentally as a Nostro Vostro account. And so basically what it sounds like he's talking about, and he just didn't, maybe it's just he didn't articulate it this way, but it's just like an immediate swap with no bridge, but that functionally doesn't work. And I'm just guessing if that's what he functionally meant. No, because where do you think the exchange rate comes from anyway? Like, it functionally just doesn't make any sense here. And so then he wrote the following: smart contracts of this nature make interoperability very organic and smooth and attractive to banks wanting to free up Nostro Vostro accounts. It should also create more liquid markets and transparent markets, and this also creates a trustless ecosystem, which is ideal to traders as well. Because if you think about it, so even if you're talking about, this is why I like to pose questions to try and get people to think when they come up with ideas like this. Functionally, how would that work? If your idea, and I'm not sure if this is what he's talking about, if you're talking about removing the bridge, okay, so you've got two banks, right? So there's a sending and a receiving bank. So let's say it's the United States dollar going to a bank in Mexico. Ultimately, that'd be the end destination, the Mexican peso. All right. So now we're going to remove the XRP. There's no bridge. We're somehow magically using smart contracts. What does that flow even look like? So because he was talking about utilizing exchanges effectively with central bank digital currency. So where does it move? So the United States dollar, the central bank digital currency version of this, if it exists in the future, it would flow to where, and then what magically happens? And see, when I start posing questions like that and I make people think about the mechanics of what they're talking about, then you can see where the arguments break down. It functionally doesn't do, like, what do you, so you move it on the exchange, and then what happens? What's the next step? What is the next step? You could say, okay, well, the receiving bank, they take hold of it. Okay, so they're taking hold of on the cryptocurrency exchange, the United States dollar, the central bank digital currency version of the United States dollar. That didn't convert it. That just that didn't convert at all. That swapped ownership of the same asset. Do you see how this breaks down? Like, it functionally doesn't work. You just got to think through it more, like pose a bunch of questions here. And it doesn't happen. And so then you got to think through it. But let's just humor. Let's humor the concept. I hopefully I've ripped it to shreds enough, and I don't mean that in an aggressive way. I just think it's fun to like play through this stuff. So I appreciate that Jared tagged me and is thinking through ways in which maybe there's a problem. That's what smart investors do. So just to be super duper clear. But let's just say that this actually was an XRP killer. This concept, let's say, not even an XRP killer, let's just say that it could work. Okay, let's take the next step. Who's going to do it? Where's the liquidity coming from? Is it going to be a central bank that is just going to hold it? Because again, you have to have dormant capital, even if you're talking about a central bank digital currency, and even if this smart contract idea actually worked, even if, and it doesn't, but even if it did, it still has to be held on a ledger somewhere. For sure, it absolutely has to, because otherwise it has to be readily able to be tapped into, or else it doesn't help anybody. So would it be a central bank that's doing this? If so, why would they be jumping into a function of the private sector? Like, should they just do we have a reason to believe that the United States, if it's the United States that's in question, are they going to nationalize other industries too, or why are we just worried about this one? Are they going to nationalize I don't know, just pick any industry. I don't care. Like the grocery industry, are they going to do that too, or is it just this one for some reason? Like, why are they going to? What's their benefit? What's the reason? Because I'll tell you what, if I'm a bank in the United States and I see the government coming in and eating my lunch, I'm going to be kind of pissed off. And I don't think that they're going to do it. Like, the United States is not in the business, generally speaking, of crossing that line. And I said generally speaking. There have been instances where I'm not thrilled, which is outside the scope of this video, where they've gone too far. But I'm just saying that's not how the government generally operates. And so I don't see a reason to believe that would actually happen here. All right? But even so, if it's not them, then who? Is it going to be another bank? Because you'd have to have a counterparty then. Well, that doesn't solve any of the trust issues. And even if you're going to do it then, it's like we get back into what I cited here, where clearly this is still a closed circuit. It's a walled garden. And so if this were magically going to happen at first, and I went through the Twitter thread with him, and I was like, okay, so who's going to do this? And I asked him all these questions. And I was like, so you realize a business has to do it. At first he said, no, a business doesn't have to exist to build this out. I said, well, who's going to build the corridors? Like, think through this logic. Like, who's going to build out the corridors? Because there has to be a messaging channel. It has to all be automated. There has to be somebody that's ensuring there's sufficient liquidity, right? All of this. And then, in the event that there's some sort of technical issue, you need to have a company with a support staff so that when remittance companies and banks that are customers here have trouble, they can go and get help, because without that, they can't get help. And if without that, are you talking about them manually pushing transfers to? Well, hell, they could do that today, but that's very inefficient. They could do that today by moving their own Bitcoin or this or that. Of course, there's regulatory issues with that. The whole argument just falls apart very quickly. And so there's no indication that there will be smart contract capabilities within central bank digital currencies. There's no reason to think that a central bank would want to, nationalize the industry. Okay, there's no reason to think that a central bank would build out a global system, and even then, you don't solve the issue of trust. Even if like a huge bank, like Bank of America, pick your bank. I don't care, pick a big bank. Even if they wanted to, it's the same reason that you don't have one winner in the world today, and it's all fragmented. Same argument here. None of that changes. And you don't see anybody even trying to do this, so you might want to, at this point, start to ask why. Because it doesn't make sense is the answer. That is the honest truth to all this. And so if you want to see more of my thoughts on this and like the back and forth, just go to my profile on Twitter, and you can go to my tweets and replies section, and you can see the whole back and forth here that I had with Jared. There was a fair bit here. But some of it's on your screen right now. In case you want to like just pause it, you can take a look at some of what I wrote here. I just don't want the video to go on any longer, but suffice it to say, the arguments that he made, to me, they don't make sense. And it's not because I want one thing to be true or not. I just want to believe whatever's true. And so if he actually found a hole, I would want to know that so that I could adjust my investing accordingly if necessary here. It doesn't make any sense, though. It honestly does not. And so I'd love to hear back from Jared again if he wants to. I sent him a message earlier today publicly on the Twitters and hadn't heard back. But and I also linked to this. I won't pull it up here, but if you want to click on this, the case against Bankcoin, it's the same thing whether you're talking about a stable coin, a bank coin, or a central bank digital currency. They all have the same shortcomings, and it all comes down to trust. And so I was trying to articulate in the Twitter thread to Jared why trust is an issue, and I think that it wasn't sticking. I hopefully I articulated it reasonably here. But my gosh, nothing, that's why I keep going back to, even if you had the smart contract capability, it does nothing to change the issue of trust. Why is one bank going to suddenly magically trust another, and that these flows are magically going through, and how do the mechanics of it actually work? Well, the mechanics don't work. I mean, I can't think of anything that would make it work. I mean, you need a bridge currency. And then if XRP is the only cryptocurrency on the planet that is being positioned for this use case. And so on top of that, think about this. Even if somebody wanted to take on the role of XRP for this particular use case, good luck catching up at this point, because there's already not much liquidity in the world of crypto. So even if you wanted to launch a new coin and do the central bank digital currency, or even if it were non-jurisdictional coin, pick a new one, good luck, because you know what? Standards matter. And once something's in place, you're not going to displace it unless you have a technology that is, 11 billion times better, basically. Because otherwise, what problem are you solving? It's the same reason if you think about, let's say XRP becomes the standard, right? Really does, globally, for bridge currency for cross-border payments. The ledger closes in 3 to 5 seconds. Well, let's say that there's a magical cryptocurrency that can scale infinitely and closes in a tenth of a second. Well, if XRP is already in place and banks are using it and there's already a support team and customer support, are people going to jump ship from XRP, which can transfer in 3 to 5 seconds, for a cryptocurrency they can do it in 0.1 seconds? Because materially, it's like the amount of improved performance you're going to get from that is effectively zero. It's not going to change anyone's lives. Who's going to change the system? How are you going to get adoption? And that's why when you see leaps in technology, frequently they're big ones. Like, even think about changing from so there was the battle between what was it called, Betamax, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and VHS tapes way back in what was, I guess, the early 80s, and then VHS one. Well, it wasn't until you had a way better technology that VHS was supplanted, and that was the DVD. Well, it's the same thing here. You're going to have a big leap, or else nobody has a reason to make a damn change. And so once XRP is in place as the standard, good luck supplanting it, my friends. And you're seeing this in work right now. So at least, we'll see if Bitcoin's always number one or if it sticks around. It very well may. I hope it does, frankly. It's number one in terms of market cap. And think about it. It's basically, in people's minds, to this point at least, it's the standard. Even if it's just a store of value, that's the way people are perceiving it. It's difficult as hell to supplant. This is a known behavior of humans. It's not going to change. Something's marginally better, and then we rip an existing system to shreds? No, that is not how this works. So good luck catching up. And so the question is, even if all of that worked, and I think I pretty well tore it to shreds and it showed it doesn't work, even if it did, why would that be a solution that anyone would choose over using RippleNet and on-demand liquidity, meaning XRP as a bridge currency? You're going to have to sell it to me. You're going to have to convince me and give me articulate reasons, and that's after you explain the mechanics of how this all works and logically makes sense, and I just don't see it. So anyway, I guess I should wrap it there. This is the longest video I've made in a very long time, so if you stayed to the end, thank you for hanging out with me. Congratulations, you did it! You achieved something. I really hope I did a reasonable job kind of explaining what I'm thinking. There's just a lot to say on this topic. I kind of thought this video might go longer than normal. But if I missed anything, I do want to know. Because if there are legitimate holes in the way that I'm approaching this, I need to be aware of that. And you deserve to be aware of holes in whatever we believe in relating to Ripple and XRP. If there are holes in it, we should know. And we should want to share that information with other XRP community members. So to me, it's always fun to just go back and forth on this type of stuff. So I really do appreciate Jared, again, tagging me here and talking back and forth with me on the Twitters. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!